living room in Nashville, Tennessee. This ghetto home studio production presents After Church with Tink McLeod, featuring the coolest of cool people and very special guests. And here's your host, Tink McLeod.
Good evening and welcome back to After Church. My name is Tink McLeod and I am your host. For those of you watching for the first time, After Church is just a ghetto YouTube show that I film in my living room, basically a talk show for Christians. Tonight is going to be a really special episode. We have Gary and Sarah Morgan, two people that have had a huge impact on my life. We'll also be featuring Mark and Sarah Tillman. They have a new single out called Just Jesus that they'll play in the middle of the interview. As well as my friend Autumn Cooper, who's a choreographer out in LA. She sent in a dance that she choreographed to Lauren Daigle, and I can't wait for you to see it. So to start the show off, I'm gonna hand it over to my friend Autumn, who's gonna tell you a little bit of the backstory behind her dance history.
Hi, my name is Autumn Crockett Cooper. I am originally from Nashville, Tennessee. I moved out to California about 13 years ago in 2007 to pursue my career in dancing and performing, and I have so ever since I moved out. So I'm really fortunate to do what I love to do as a career. I've had so many amazing experiences in this industry and not so good ones. One of my most amazing ones was probably being on tour with the Broadway musical Wicked, which I did for 2 years. I think the hardest part was being away from my husband and my dogs here in California. It gets tough. I think the hardest thing about being in this industry is probably the rejection as well, because you could be told 9 times no, but that one yes will be worth it all. This piece actually you're getting ready to see is something I choreographed to when this song originally first came out, and I was actually on tour with the musical Wicked at the time, and I was kind of going through, I had already been on tour for a little over a year and a half, and I was coming to terms with the fact that I was going to be ending my tour probably soon because I was ready to be home. And so I was in between heartbreak and excitement because I was going for a new adventure, coming home and seeing what was going to happen next, and then also battling leaving something I loved so much, and then a family I connected to. This song definitely means a lot to me, and it definitely touches my soul. And the reason I love dancing so much is I'm not very good with words, one, and so the fact that I can express how I feel through my art and movement is really a true blessing, and I'm so thankful that I'm able to do what I love every day, and God has given me this gift, and I don't know where I would be without it. So I hope you guys enjoy, and thank you guys so much.
I hear you whisper you have nothing left. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true. I will rescue you. Never stop marching to reach you in the middle of the hardest fight. It's true. I will rescue you. Oh, I will rescue you.
All right, well, the time has come for us to hear from Gary and Sarah Morgan. Like I said earlier, Gary and Sarah have had a huge impact on mine and Sam's life. They're the two that invited us to Australia. We spent the last 4.5 years over there working with them, serving them, eating their amazing food, hanging out with their 2 amazing children, and having as much fun as possible. So for a little intro, here's a video that I made for them last year to commemorate our time with them over in Australia. This is School of the Prophets, take 1. Camera.
Oh my god.
Sorry, do it again. How do you expect? He began to talk.
How do you feel?
Oh wait, now you got all black on you. Do a little clap. Hey guys, welcome to School of Prophets 2016.
Gary and I are so excited to have you guys join us for the trial year of School of Prophets online.
Hi, I'm Sam. This is my wife, Tink. How this is going to work is I'm going to read the question, and then one of them will answer it. One of them and me, but I'll need a second after I read it, okay?
I feel like Britney Spears. I'm like,
Sam and Tink, Lord, as they minister to us tonight, Lord, we thank you for the gold that they are, and we thank you for the gold that they have.
I'm Tink and this is Sam, and we're from Nashville, Tennessee. We moved here about over a year and a half ago, and so we came here to work with Gary and Sarah, and we launched the school last year, and here we are.
They have been amazing leaders for us in this season, and pastors in this season, and now you'll just be prophets to us, I guess. But we want to honor you guys so much for giving us the opportunity to build this school with you. I can't thank you enough. And whenever you talk about finding your own voice and how you inspire that in everyone, that was my biggest thing for me, is you helped me find my voice.
Well, again, thank you so much for doing this. We had some great times over there, right?
Come on.
Absolutely.
Best.
All right, ready? Rapid fire questions. Go. What's your favorite food?
Food.
Asian infusion.
What's your favorite dish to cook?
Lamb roast.
What's your favorite city you've ever traveled to?
I don't know. Hoi An? Hoi An in Vietnam.
Yeah, it's a
I
tough.
don't know.
It's a tough one.
There's too many.
For me, honestly, Melbourne is my favorite city, even when we come back home. So, it's, even though we live here, there's not a
true.
city like it. So, yeah, I would say Melbourne.
Yeah. Favorite clothing brand?
G-Star Raw.
To Cuba.
Oh, and I love Ralph Lauren as well. So, the polo stuff.
Who's your favorite musician?
Oh. Has to be Tower of Power. Get the funk going. Definitely Tower of Power. What is hip? What an opening. 16ths on the bass. We should get any of your listeners who are bassists to send in some covers of them doing What is Hip.
Sarah, who's your favorite
I
musician?
don't know.
You're always playing Laura Diggle or whatever it is. Is it Diggle? Laura Diggle?
No, it's Lauren Daigle.
Diggle.
What's the craziest ministry story?
Go. You tell yours.
So we were in a church and we got a call to say that this boy had been hit by a truck while skateboarding and he was rushed to the hospital. And, they asked us would we go and pray for him. He had swollen brain, he's on, critical. And so we went to the hospital. And as we got to the hospital, we sort of met the pastors and stuff like that. And as we're walking into the sort of ward area, there's a sort of prayer chapel on the side. As I'm standing there, the room just closes and it feels like I'm about to faint. But as the room closes, the room closes, then opens up and I'm in heaven. And I'm sitting with the Father and all of a sudden I see this boy coming towards like where me and the Father are sitting. And I just hear the Father say, "What are you doing here? It's not your time. Get back into your destiny." And all of a sudden I come to and I'm on the floor. And so I had passed out. And I came around and sort of shared what I said. And, listen, this boy isn't going to die. I just heard the Father say it's time for him to get back into his destiny. And so we had prayed and then we left. Well, we find out this boy had started doing paradiddles. He was a drummer, started doing paradiddles on his chest. And within, another day, then something else happened. So on the third day, he wakes up, he comes out of whatever he's in and wakes up. And the first thing he says is, "Where's the Welshman?" And his father's like, "What?" He said, I saw the Welshman in my dream. And this is what he said: "It's not my time, get back in your destiny." And so, oh man, I got goosebumps. And so all of a sudden, like from there, like he makes a miraculous recovery.
Yeah.
He was told that, he would be brain damaged and stuff like that. And, it was just crazy. And so from there, I've never wanted to ever take for granted moments in God that just lead to just mind-blowing situations that, man has written it off, but God starts writing it down. And so, that's crazy.
Yep, for sure. Speaking of ministry, you both have been in ministry for years upon years now. Sarah, you started in ministry when you were 16?
17. 17 was when I left
17.
home, but I was always in ministry and church and stuff growing up from about the age of 13. Yeah.
So you left home to go on the road doing ministry, or what were you?
Yeah, it was a thing called Apostolic Team Ministries, which no longer exists now, but it was actually based out of Tampa Bay, Florida. And so I moved there just after I graduated high school and spent a year on the road with a team of young people, doing everything from preaching, healing the sick, to scrubbing toilets and floors and feeding the homeless and street evangelism, and we learned everything to do with ministry. And the pretty parts.
Such a young age.
Yeah, the pretty parts and the not so pretty parts.
17. Gary, when did you start doing ministry?
Probably pretty much from 18 onwards. That's when went to South Africa. God changed my life there. I came back, planted a school of prophets. And then really just saw God do some incredible things, help plant a church, and then found myself in America in 2005, speaking at a conference, and that's when I met Sarah. And so, it's just crazy. And then from there, it's a whole story that God continues to unfold and continues to show Himself faithful in. And it's been an incredible journey. It feels like 5 minutes and it feels like 50 years, but
It's only been 22.
Yeah. So.
But I think one of the best stories is how you guys met. So would you guys mind telling that story?
Sure, but tell them about what happened before we actually met for your side of the story.
Yeah. So before we met, I go to the airport and all of a sudden I jump. I get to the desk and check in and. The person's like, "Oh, sir, here's your seat number." I'm like, this is incredible. 50 something. I'm like, it must be phenomenal seat. Well, I didn't realize that seat was right at the back. And so it was the one before the toilets, right at the back of this plane. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, at least I've got an aisle seat. And so I'm sitting there and all of a sudden this girl comes down the aisle with these hot pants on and hoodie. And I'm thinking, flipping, stroll on, what the heck? Like, have some decency, love, we're on a plane here. And so all of a sudden, I'm sitting there and she's standing right there and she literally takes the hoodie off and she's got this bikini on. And I'm thinking, flipping, stroll on. Like, she's not a small girl. And so I'm like dead on looking. Because, no one's Teflon coated. I'm thinking, good Lord, I'm being defiled here. So I stare at this guy. I'm like locked onto this guy. He's looking at me thinking I'm staring at him. So all of a sudden, I've just got the assumption of defilement, the actual defilement, and I can't win. And so I'm like, flipping, so Lord, what am I going to do? So I'm just sitting there. I'm like, Lord, I just command this plane to get cold in Jesus' name. So as we taxi and going to take off, the plane just goes super cold. And so she presses the bell and asks for a blanket. So she covers herself up and I'm like, thank God for that. And so all of a sudden, we're halfway across the Atlantic and she just pushes me. And so I'm trying to watch something and she pushes me and she goes, "So where are you off to?" And she's got this like thick American accent. I'm like, well, I'm off to America. I'm a minister. And she goes, I'm a pagan. And every time I go to America, I meet my destiny. I think you're going to meet yours. And I'm thinking, what the flip? I can hear the resonance of the prophetic on her voice. And I'm like, God, am I Balaam that I need, let me not go there. Am I Balaam that I need someone like this to speak to me? That I'm not hearing you? And so at that point I land, and it's the 22nd of June when I land. And so I go up to the passport control, and the guy's like, sir, you were here last year. And I'm like, yeah, I was. Yeah, that's right. I was here in 2004. No, he says, you were here this time last year. I said, yes, sir, I was. No, he says, look. And it said the 22nd of June, 2004. And all of a sudden he stamps it, and it says 22nd of June 2005, and literally it was 22. And for those that know us, 22 is a significant number out of Isaiah 22, the key of David. And so I knew God was opening something at that point. What I didn't realize is what he was doing was opening, my future. And so it was incredible.
Unbeknownst to me, Gary and I were speaking at the same conference, and I was late because I was severely addicted to coffee. And I was late to my session, and the host of the conference came up to me and she's like, have you met Gary Morgan? I was like, no, who is he? She's like, he's speaking next week. Go up and find him. He's over by the sound desk. And I was like, aren't you going to introduce me? She's like, no, go over and introduce yourself. And I went and tapped this guy called Gary Morgan on the shoulder, and he turns around and he says, do you like music? Yeah.
In my head, it went, yes, I am. Yes, I am. And who are you? But it was like, out of my mouth, like,
but then,
do you like music?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the flip did I just say? What a pickup line. What the heck? At that moment, I was like, is this like an encounter I'm having? So I just couldn't work it out. I was just like, at that point, I was fully in control of everything. I knew what life was. I knew where it was going, what everything was about. But all of a sudden, it was like God just sidelined me with this. You think you can work this out, son? Watch this. And it's like, boom.
So that was,
Gosh.
that was us meeting.
That was nearly come up 15 years ago.
And then, so you guys talked on MSN and stuff, and you became friends, and
We started talking for only a couple of weeks after we first initially met at that conference, and then the rumorville started. So, and then my dad was like, "Yeah, no," but actually told Gary to wait, because by that point we kind of knew something was happening. So we stopped talking for over a month. It was well over a month because you didn't even know where I was.
That's right.
And I had actually had a horse accident, broke my pelvis. I was in America and in hospital, and Gary, unbeknownst to me, Gary's in Canada, and he, we're talking dial-up days still, where internet was not a normal thing.
No Instagram.
No, you literally
media.
had to dial in or connect to even just get anything, even emails. It wasn't instant connection.
What was the other thing? It's not Facebook. What was the other?
MySpace.
MySpace wasn't even in existence yet.
And at this point, you guys had never really hung out or anything because you just met at that conference.
Yep.
And then you chatted online for a few times or for a couple of weeks.
Yep.
And all of this was really spiritual because it's it was just a knowing. All of it was just a knowing.
It was.
And so then, Gary, what was happening on your end?
So I'm in Canada at Toronto, and I'm in the offices there, and so I plugged in my computer to see if I got any emails or anything. And as I plugged it in, this this Messenger, MSN Messenger thing came up saying Sarah's been rushed to hospital. Please pray.
Prepped for surgery.
So I'm like, so I go into this panic because I can't go back into America because I'm on my way out of America to go back to the UK to reset the visa to come back into America. And I'm just standing there and I'm like, Lord Jesus, where is she? What am I to do? And all of a sudden, in front of me comes these numbers. And I'm like, whoa. And it was the beginning of this whole word of knowledge sort of journey in my life. And all of a sudden I see these numbers and I'm like, there's too many eights. There's way too many eights for this to mean anything. And so the guys in the office, they're like, Gary, what are you seeing? And I'm like, I just see these numbers. And they're like, what does it begin with? And I'm like, 1208, 88. And then all of a sudden, all these numbers, which were mostly eights. And I'm like, this is crazy. And so they grabbed the phone and they said, well, call it, see what happens. And so I'm like, my heart is pounding. And so I dial it, and all of a sudden it starts ringing. And I'm like, ah. And so this person answers. I said, my name's Gary Morgan. I don't know if this is real, but is Sarah Johns there, please? And all I hear was it's like Ferris Bueller, the secretary. It's like, I'm like, I'm so sorry. And as I go and put the phone down, the next voice I hear was Sarah's, who had just come in from the hospital. And so it was just like crazy.
I have this saying that it was a real pain in the butt getting to know him. So that happened. So I did that around the end of September. I flew back to New Zealand once they released me for flying just after Thanksgiving. And I'm sitting down. It was close to your birthday. And we're sitting down talking, but I was jet lagged. Because remember, my dad still said no about Gary. And so we're talking, and I'm like, what if you just came out and met my family? Like, if you just come meet them, we can figure out whether this is a thing or not. And I was like, oh, gotta go, Dad's up. Because I was jet lagged. I was doing it at 5 a.m. because of the time difference. And my dad and I sit down for breakfast, and I'm literally about to eat my cereal. And he goes, so when's Gary Morgan coming out? And I was like, what the heck? And I was like, it sucks when you have prophetic parents, right? And so
exactly.
So that unfolded. A plan for Gary to come out. Was it 10th of January you landed?
Yeah.
For the whole interest thing and actually getting to know each other was kind of sidetracked because you heard an encounter on your birthday?
Yeah, so it was crazy. On my birthday, I remember the Lord saying to me, I'm going to meet you on your birthday. I got up that morning and I'm waiting. I had a kind of an upper room place I was staying, where I was staying in New England, in Vermont. And I remember getting up that morning and just waiting on the Lord and like nothing. And so I waited. I decided to fast. I was waiting there and nothing. The sun rose. But as the sun started to set, I'll never forget, it was like I heard a knock at the door. And I'm like, this is crazy. And I opened the bedroom door, and the only way I can describe it, it was like light stepped into me and I stepped into light. And the next thing I remember was waking up that next day. But all of a sudden I realized I'd had an encounter where the Lord showed me this mountain. He took me to this mountain place. He took me to this passage of Ruth, where I die, you'll die, where you go, I'll go, your people will be my people, let nothing but death separate us. And so I remember having that encounter, and all of a sudden I saw like a jewelry case in a jeweler's, and I saw like the third row down, the fifth ring across highlighted, and the Lord said, that one. And so coming out of that encounter, the only place I knew in a jeweler's was where Sarah worked. So I decided to talk to a housemate or someone staying at her parents who also worked there. And so I called and said, I need to talk to you. Can you give me the number of the jeweler's? And she goes, yeah, I'll be working there tomorrow. Call me. And so I called and I said, you need to trust me. And I said, you trust me? She goes, yeah, okay. And I said, okay, I need you to walk over to this jewelry case. I think it's on the right-hand side of the room. And she's like, okay. And I said, okay, I need you to count 3 rows down, 5 rings across from the top. And she goes, okay. I said, you'll see a ring and it's shaped like one claw going one way, one claw going the other. And it's like got maybe a half carat, if not a carat diamond in the middle. And so she's like, wait a minute, let me count. And so she starts counting. And then she counts across 5, and then she just like cusses, like, oh my. And I'm like, what? She goes, how do you know this stuff? And I'm like, I don't know, but God showed me. And so I'm getting freaked out. I'm still learning this whole encounter thing with the Lord. And so she's like, I'll talk to my manager and I'll see if I can put it on, like, get it ordered or something like that. And we'll try and get Sarah's ring size. I said, you don't need to. God's given it to me. She goes, no. I said, yeah, it's J. And she goes, no way is it J. So she goes, we're going to like try and size it. So every time they went, like they were playing along with Sarah, and they would put a ring on and it would be K. Or they put another one on and it would be H, or they would be I. It was never J.
Never J.
And I said to them, I don't care what you do, you order that thing as J. The Lord showed me. And so when it come then to actually asking her to marry me, that ring just slipped straight on. And it was crazy.
Yeah. So we'll give you the rest of the story condensed.
Yeah.
So he flew out 10th of January. 22nd of January he proposes. 6th of February we get married. 14th of February we fly to be in our first conference together, and we adjust because I had an itinerary set up for the first half of the year and so did he, and so we kind of just mishmashed it together and traveled.
And then we found ourselves in the first conference in Florida with Heidi Baker, who gives us this whole prophetic word about how God's calling us to wake up the Western church. And it was all connected with something that happened with her. But she'd give us this whole prophetic word of God's calling you to wake up the Western church because they're drowning in the very things they're filling themselves with. And it just set us on this course of really God's called us to wake up. That it's really tied in with the whole Lazarus thing of, the church isn't dead, it's just sleeping. And you've got to go and wake it up. And so that's really been our heart for so long, is just seeing a waking up of people who are dormant or asleep in their gifting or asleep in their destiny, or even promises over people's lives. And that's why I think I love about the prophetic is the prophetic becomes the alarm clock of activation, of just waking up people who may be dormant or asleep in their promises or what's happening on their life. So, yeah.
So that's our story.
Hi, we are Mark and Sarah Tillman. We are songwriters and worship leaders living in Nashville, Tennessee. And we are showing you guys a brand new song of ours called Just Jesus.
Yeah, that we just released 2 weeks ago, and we are so excited to sing it for you guys. Basically, a little snapshot of this song. The heart behind it is really just laying down your full, wholehearted yes to Jesus and having him exalted above everything. So we're so excited to sing it for you guys.
Yeah.
There's a fire in your eyes that burns through all my pride. There's an altar in your hands for the laying down of my plans. Here I am now, and all of me bows. See just Jesus, simply and only just Jesus. There's a whisper in your voice that cuts through all the noise. There's a song inside your heart that tears every lie apart. Here I am now, and all of me bows. Simply and only just Jesus. Seeming and only just Jesus. You've reduced me down to this one thing right now, and all of me cries out for simply Jesus. You've reduced me down to this one thing right now, and all of me cries out for simply Jesus, simply Jesus, only Jesus. Simply and only just Jesus. Simply and only just Jesus.
How would you describe, because I think when people would hear these stories, they'll hear that kind of story and it won't register to them that it's real, like that kind of thing would make sense. How would you explain this type of supernatural living to someone that's so new to this kind of culture and atmosphere,
It's really what Jesus says, that to see the kingdom, you've got to be childlike. And that's how we've always positioned ourselves, of just being childlike, of never turning our wow into a how. And so, it's always keeping the wonder and never trying to work it out or trying to, make it understandable in that sort of sense of sometimes a mystery has to remain a mystery. I think we lose sight of the supernatural when we try and work it out, or we get suspicious, or we get into a place of dismissal. Oh, that can't be God. When time and time again, God continually, there's things that happen that, no one knows about, but, they happen on a daily basis. And, it's really keeping the wonder in the little, them God-accidental times when, you think, oh God, that could only been you. Wow, I can't believe that. And so just being aware of them, I think people are looking for the big fireworks, or they're looking for the wow, moments, but it's actually the little things that actually lead to them.
Yeah, I think too, it was just actually, like Gary is saying, it's like it was actually a lot of little things that actually, when you put it all together, it sounds like an extravagant, crazy supernatural story, and it is for sure. But it was like God just took our steps at each moment. He met us at each moment. Yeah. And I think we were surrounded with some amazing people at that time that really helped navigate that season to a place of in a healthy way. But I think at the end of the day, it was like God actually invited both of us to really choose each other still. Even though we could see and experience all the supernatural confirmation and everything like that, I think at the end of the day, we still chose each other. Yeah. And we still chose to love each other through the thick and thin. So if we didn't come to that space, I don't think we would have lasted through some of the really hard stuff that we've experienced through just life and marriage and, just what happens in daily life. Yeah,
I think that's a great point. I think it's choice. And I think choosing to live a supernaturally aware life is a choice. You've got to choose that. I think it's like Moses in the back end of the desert. Burning bushes were dime a dozen, and I think that's what people don't understand. Bushes burned. Otherwise, you wouldn't say, how is this bush burning but isn't consumed? And because, so Moses every day saw burning bushes, but it was his choice to actually turn aside and say, actually, this is something different. I'm actually going to choose to acknowledge. I'm going to choose to turn aside. I'm going to choose to focus and actually be aware of this. And I think awareness is a choice every day.
Yeah.
I think people just go about life sometimes and, they don't stop to smell the roses. They don't stop to ask the question. And I think that's one of the things I think people are afraid of in these days, is to ask the question, is that you, God? Because they're afraid, like, oh my gosh, am I going to deny God? Am I going to blaspheme the Holy Spirit if I just ask the question? But it's for me, it's just asking the question, hey God, are you in this? And I remember one time God did something, and I remember just making this phrase, God, you did that on purpose, didn't you? And I remember so clearly hearing, he said, Gary, I didn't do that on purpose, I did that for purpose. And so you realize there's things that God does in our life, and they're just for purpose.
It's so amazing to hear how you guys say that it's choice and childlikeness, because I think that kind of stuff happens to people every day, where it's like, I feel something on this, but I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
So then they just ignore it.
Yeah.
But I think childlikeness is actually just making the choice to believe that it's real. You guys teach people that so well. I mean, our minds were blown being around you guys. Like literally every day it was like just little things, like Sarah especially, like little things you'd be like, yeah, but can't God do bigger than that? I'd be like, oh, you're right. Like I shouldn't put God in a box. Speaking of how you guys empower people and disciple people, tell me about the school.
The School of Prophets was a dream becoming true when we sat, and when I say we, Sarah and I, you and Sam, sat around a table one day, and you asked the question. And the question you asked was, what is in your hearts? What is something, if nothing was impossible, what do you do? And we just literally opened our hearts and began just to share what was in it. And I remember you just turning around, Tink, and going, well, let's do it. And I'm thinking, what? There's no way. This is crazy.
Because it was like November, December.
Yeah. November, December of 2015. And you're like, no, we can do this. Let's do it. And so we began to whiteboard, we began to plan, and literally, within days, we had this, what I feel was like this Lego box of bricks. And it was like, there's a brick, there's a brick, there's a brick. Like, what the heck? How does this all come together?
We're like,
yeah, let's just juggle this and see what happens. Let's throw it against the wall and see if anything sticks. And so we decided to put this curriculum together. And so I drew on some of my experience from having a school in Wales. Sarah drew on experience from, doing the discipleship course. You guys drew on the experience you had with School of Supernatural Life. And it was kind of like all these ingredients came together. And, we contacted people we knew, and all of a sudden we were legit because we had this logo, and then we got a website, and then, we got this and that. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, is anyone going to sign up? And then the Lord spoke to us about taking it online. Mm-hmm. And it was like, this is impossible. As soon as we said yes to that, it's like the floodgates opened. So yeah, we ended up then with 50 people in-house and then 50 people online.
Yep, it was.
And it was like, where did all these people come from? And it's just been a story of continual transformation where people are, like even last night, we heard a testimony. This is our 5th year, and this woman said, for the first time in her life, she enjoys being alive.
Set free from depression.
She's set free from years of depression. Yeah. She is smiling, she's dancing, and for the first time in her life, she's actually enjoys being alive.
It is an amazing privilege to be able to teach and be a part of people's journey in the 8 months of the school that we do. And just to watch how far people come to the school thinking they're going to learn how to prophesy. And yes, you absolutely do. And you grow in the prophetic, even if you're experienced in the prophetic. but it is just such a personal journey with the Father that everybody goes through, and they are all transformed. And it's such a shocking process for so many of our students, but the breakthroughs they get that they would never have imagined any other way, but it comes out of that space of setting that time aside for growing and learning, and yet God trumps them. He does exceedingly abundantly above all that they could ask or imagine every single time. And it's addictive.
It is.
What's so cool about the origin of the story is like it really shows a childlikeness, because when we were in the beginning stages of it, when the online thing was brought to the table, that was where you guys were just like, yeah, let's do it. And me and Sam were like, really? I don't know. I don't think we could do this. Like, we don't know what we're doing. And you guys were like, God knows what he's doing. We're going to do it.
We'll figure it out.
And now, like, look at where you guys are at now, today. I mean, you're doing everything online. Like, tell me about it.
We didn't realize how well God actually equipped us for this season. It was very stressful, but it was like overnight. We set up our front room as a studio, and we brought all of our equipment from school home. But majority of our school, aside from our in-house, is already kind of online anyway. And then you spend hours and hours and hours learning Zoom.
Yeah, I would watch like YouTube after YouTube on Zoom, and all the different equipment and all the, all that kind of how-to. And really, I think this is another lesson in hearing not just the Holy Spirit, but also listening to your wife. Is even last year, Sarah's like, honey, we need to establish a studio in the front room. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that'll be good. One day we'll get to it. And so she's like, no, we need to. And I'm like, yeah, we'll get to it. And all of a sudden, like when COVID hit, it's like boom. So we brought all the equipment home, and we didn't realize actually even all the different things that we set up in setting up the school, like even what Sam was involved in, and his unction to go with certain equipment, or his like, oh yeah, we could do this way, but actually let's go that way, actually future-proofed us for this season. Yeah. And so it's just literally plug and play. And so, with the whole black magic, and it's, you can't even use that sometimes around evangelicals. It's like, what equipment do you use to do your school? Well, we use black magic. And I'm like, what? We don't want to be part of that school.
If you don't understand.
If you don't understand equipment, people think we're into witchcraft. And so it's just been a real joy of actually realizing how if you posture yourself as a learner when things happen, then you'll begin to lead. If you think you can just lead when God changes a season, you'll be forced to become a learner. And so I just keep hearing the Lord saying for this season particularly, just keep learning. Humble yourself and keep learning. Keep going back to that place of learning, because when the season changes again, you'll find yourself leading. So I think it's key.
What would you say is like the high of being a prophetic leader? Being a prophetic kind of pioneer, and what would you say is like the low or the challenge of being someone that is seen as a prophetic leader?
I think the high for me personally is watching the manifestation of the kindness of God constantly when I make myself available. Gary makes himself available to use the power gift basically, and his love and the vehicle of his love and kindness being made manifest. Because the thing that actually gives, for me especially, but I know us, the most pleasure is when they come back to you and say, I can't really remember what you said, but I encountered Jesus' love or the Father's love. And that's what they remember. They remember the tangible encounter that they got in that moment. And for me, that's definitely the high. What about you, hun?
Yeah, definitely there. And I think also as well, when you give someone the tools to connect with God for themselves, when you see the light go on in their eyes, when you that sudden realization, I've just connected with God, I've just connected with the Father through just a simple activation, or through just sharing about what God's done in your life, all of a sudden the light going on, it's addictive. When you see the light going on in someone's life. The other aspect, I think, is when you hear someone prophesy for the first time, you don't just get that privilege of hearing them, you get the privilege of hearing another aspect of God's heart that you'd never heard before. Yeah. And so when they start speaking, you know, it just wrecks me. And you know, it's an absolute privilege. It's you know, we've given our life for this because of that privilege. Yeah. And we never want to take it for granted. I guess one of the low lights, I think in there is being misunderstood, being probably it's that place of misunderstood, not finding everyone understands your heart. And so I think sometimes when you do take a step of faith, or when you do step out, we all know it, haters are going to hate. And, you just can't help that. Even Jesus had people who were against him. And so for me, it's just keeping your heart, focused on what he said. In the midst of everything, it's just keeping your heart, believe in the best, because that's what love does. Not letting it malign you, but allowing your heart to remain steadfast in what God has said.
I think we're very grateful, especially probably in the last 10 years, that we've had some amazing people be able to walk with us through the lows. But yeah, I think the lows are, it's that place of learning tenacity and steadfastness. Because we are so future orientated, or the next thing, or whatever the Lord is actually doing and saying, we kind of sometimes can get quick to be disillusioned and disappointed, or our expectations aren't met because it's not the way we thought it was going to happen. And I think that's a challenge for me, especially, is not to give up when everything looks contrary to what he said, and to actually remain faithful, just like Abraham. And we look at Abraham and we know how, what we would say is he's not actually that faithful, because he tried to do it in his own strength so many times. But even when we think we're failing and that we're not actually believing in him and his promises, and that what we feel are our low places, that he actually sees that journey so differently. And that even in those low places, I still judge him faithful, even if I'm not feeling it and seeing it. And I think those low places for me are like, sometimes we just want things to hurry up, and I want you to meet my expectation, rather than allowing God to actually just do it in his way and his timing. So
it's beautiful.
Why do you think it's important for people to understand the prophetic, especially like in this day and age? Why is the prophetic so valuable to the body of Christ?
I think for me, the prophetic enables us to get to know a part of the heart of the Father that we wouldn't actually get to know any other way. And when you're getting to know someone, you often get to know them around doing stuff together. And for me, I feel like he's given us this gift that leads us into a place of intimacy, because we actually can't do it ourselves. And we can't make the stuff up. And I feel like it's like one of those dad activities that we get to do, to be able to display Christ in a way that is completely supernatural, but it invites us into a place of intimacy that we don't get in any other way. And I think, too, when it says, my sheep know my voice, it's that space of, we think prophetic is for other people, but it's actually for ourselves first, is knowing his voice first. We're all prophetic, whether we prophesy over somebody or not. My sheep hear my voice, and that is I think that keeps us on the straight and narrow, of knowing when he's really speaking, and that place of relationship and intimacy.
I think the importance is to, in this day and age, particularly, the prophetic gives us the God option. It gives us his heart's perspective on something, and even on someone. The prophetic gives a perspective that's heavenly, not earthly. Yeah. The prophetic isn't a gift for others first, it's a gift unto us first. And so we get to hear God for ourselves, because you can't give what you haven't got. And it grieves me when people want to get into prophetic ministry and they hear so well for others, but they can't hear for themselves. And that's why, we started the school, because we want to see a company of people raised up who can hear God for themselves. And out of the overflow of that, they can hear for others.
Yeah.
And so it's having that connection with God for themselves first. And that's why I think the prophetic is so key in this day, is because when you're presented with situations and circumstances, you get to hear God's perspective. You get to hear Jesus' testimony about that and get to act.
Yeah, I just love the redemptive nature of God's perspective. And it's so different because oftentimes we think we have the answers of any given situation, but more often than not, it's not redemptive in its nature. And, for God, for God works everything to good for those who love him and called according to his purposes. And until we can step into what he sees about something, we can't align ourselves into that promise.
What are you dreaming about for, corporately for the world? What do you guys dream about seeing for the church and stuff?
I want to see people prosper. I want to see, as John says, brethren, I pray that you prosper in all things, even as your soul prospers. So I'm not just talking materially. For me, I want to see families. I want to see businesses. I want to see, government, education, the spheres of society prosper. And so, but it comes from that place. And so I'm continually going back to Ezekiel, where the river was coming out of the temple. Yeah. And so, God, what is coming out of the church right now that is changing? And this is what I love. The further away the river was, it says that the deeper the prophet got. And so, it's for me, it's where we can reach that's going to bring the biggest impact. And so even in the prophetic right now, like my heart is to see, innovation and all that aspect of technology and the answers to what this world is looking for is found within a relationship with Jesus Christ, not for our ticket to salvation or heaven, but to actually to become cultural and society transformers. Yeah. And so I want to see that. I want to see that in us, but I want to see that in the world. Is that whatever God's is doing through this COVID time, God didn't send this virus, but He's going to use it. And so whatever is in this moment right now of us slowing down, taking time, there's a new wineskin. It's a new era. It's a brand new time we're in right now. And sometimes you've just got to lay down things that were in an old season to pick up what God's doing in this season. And so, I don't want to bring what I had to, endure in one season. God wants me to prosper in another. And so, that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. I think I'm hoping for a major shift in culture, like globally, like church culture, and it actually stops being church culture. It actually starts to be kingdom culture, and that the church actually through this season, I think this is where my heart beats and comes alive, is like actually praying that we all, and it's not, I'm not just speaking to the out there kind of somewhere, this is what the Lord's been speaking to me personally, is that there's a lot of conduct stuff that Jesus actually requires us to look like Him, and that we actually grow up into maturity, and that we start demonstrating Him, we stop judging each other, and we stop being critical, and just we look like our normal culture, and sometimes we're worse off. And it's actually that maturity of Christ coming into the body, that we can actually be the light, the city on the hill, the light in the darkness, the ones with the answer, where we truly know and understand what it is to love each other like Christ loves us. And I think our foundations are being shaken. I think our faith in what we truly believe in the Bible is being shaken at the moment. And I'm grateful for it, as though even though it's so scary and devastating at the same time, on some level, it's like it feels like when you go to the chiropractor and you get realigned, it's like we're out of alignment, and God's bringing equipment to realign us to actually start. And not everything's bad. Please don't hear that. It's just, I think that maturity, that need to grow up and be mature Christians that really truly love each other. Our vision at Stairway is relentless love. And it is that message of relentless love, loving no matter what people behave like. Obviously not permissioning the behavior, but it's like, actually, let's bring freedom. Let's bring love and keep loving until people start asking why. And that's where the salvation message really comes in, is like, why do you guys love each other? Why do you guys help each other? Why do you love me? Like, I'm not worth it. Yeah. But that's where we get to say, hey, you are worth it, because actually I don't determine your worth. I don't determine your deserving of honor. He did, and he died for you.
I think one of the other things as well, I think we're entering an era of the fruits of the Spirit, not the gifts. And I think we've been so gift-orientated that, one of the things I recognize, when Jesus sent his disciples out, he didn't send them out. The commission wasn't a commission of gift. It was a commission of fruit. He said, my peace, when you go, my peace, I give you my peace, I'll leave you. Now, when you go into a town, speak peace. He didn't say prophesy. He didn't say heal the sick. Wow. He said speak peace. Yeah. And so it was this, like, speak peace. So it's release the fruit that's going to cause everything else to come up, to manifest. And this is one of the things I think we've missed, is God is calling us to be not peacekeepers, but peacemakers. And this is one of the key places, is I think the church is going to be known in this era for the fruit, not the gifts. And so, when all of a sudden everything's shut down, where do we find ourselves? At home. And so, Tobias, I'm not gonna grow my family. I'm not gonna